welcome to my podcast, Spiritual Shenanigans. This is my guide, a balanced guide to navigating, spotting and surviving spiritual bullshit. Today, in this podcast, I want to talk about hindsight, what I would do differently if I went back to the beginning of my path. I want to do a few podcasts on the pitfalls of how you can get lost in your new chosen spiritual group, and how to avoid being manipulated and losing yourself. And this is really the sort of first one of those videos, but it's also about how do you most effectively navigate the spiritual path? How do you make it rich for you in your inner growth, and how to avoid just taking on someone else's teachings, because really that's someone else's path. That's someone else's path, and they've written it down. It's been passed on, and although some of it will be completely relevant to you, some of it won't make sense. Also, a lot of our teachings were written in a time before we were even dreamt of, before the internet, before everything. And so the teachings we're often taught do have the vibe of very different times. So today, in this podcast, I want to talk about the fact that it's actually you on this spiritual path. It's your experience that matters. You're born, and then the only person that matters in the end is you, because you die. And we can choose how to live our life on that journey, but the fact still remains that the person who grows is you, and you need to be able to work out how to most effectively grow. If you've got goals, spiritual goals, then how do these lofty views, these lofty ideas, what do they mean to you? So I do have a lot of hindsight on this. I've said in previous podcasts that I was a Buddhist nun, and then I disrobed. I found myself in a cult. I've been part of the Mormon religion, and I've experienced the Christian religion. So I feel like I have enough experience to be able to share what I regard as good advice. First of all, I don't think every spiritual group might do this, but a lot of spiritual groups, when you start, they have a whole different language. They kind of use the same words as you're used to, like love, compassion, etc. But depending on the group, they have a different weight. Somehow they're just slightly different, and they use words like divine or God or and all these that I do. It's very difficult for me to point out any particular words, because each sort of group has their own individual language, and you're the kind of implied pressure in some groups, and just downright pushed pressure in a cult, is that your life up until the point you met the cult is to be kind of binned, isn't of any relevance to your spiritual path. But so I've got an issue with this. So like I've said before, when I was very young, I had spiritual experiences, like meditative ones, and they were not given to me by a teacher or trained in me. They were just natural responses to the to getting quiet, or I don't know, just something that happened in play, and that gave me the feeling that there must be like a universal, timeless connection to whatever we regard as divine, spirit, Buddhas, whatever. Because there are religions in every country. They've happened themselves, and I believe, like, in Buddhism, for example, they'll say, oh, there were lots of enlightened masters through time. So to think that your particular group is the only true group is, like, to me, a sign of weakness in their philosophy. So the first thing I would like to point out to you is that your whole life has been a spiritual path. Everything has brought you to the moment you meet your group or your church or Buddhism or whatever you meet. It's not like, boom, you meet the group, suddenly everything is all like spiritual from then on in, because that's not the case. And some groups will sort of like infiltrate your idea of love, and they'll kind of make you feel like that the love you've experienced before the group wasn't pure love, and the love you gave wasn't pure love because it wasn't informed by the group. And of course, the seeds of all religions use the same words as we use before we meet the religions. So love, compassion, wisdom, and so forth. So the temptation is to, like, throw your past away and start again and think, oh, well, I must have got love all wrong. I haven't been informed enough to make the right choices. The way I've loved people is wrong. I want to do a separate podcast on love because, to a certain degree it's true. We all love in a different way. We all have different motivations. But at the end of the day, our understanding of love is the seed that will take us to greater, purer experiences and offering of love. So, like, you cannot just, like, throw away all the love you've experienced and given in your life as impure. So, like, in cults, for example, they will imply that everyone outside of the group is impure, and in doing that they'll separate you from your people. And even, I think, in churches a little bit, like, there's a feeling like if you don't believe in their particular line of philosophy, you won't go to heaven, or blah blah blah. And it just makes me wonder what happened to all the people before that church was formed. So it's very important, I think, when you're embarking, when you're first starting out, and even as you go along, that you try to grow from within, learn through your own understanding, and not sort of like plaster on other people's descriptions. And so when you read a scripture or a puja or whatever, and it says the love of a Buddha, that love is the same love as you've been giving people. It's a wish to, to make people feel safe, to make people feel happy, to make people feel warm. It's all got the same seeds in there as divine love. So, and the same with, like, compassion and wisdom, and wisdom's another one. Like, they really hijack the word wisdom, because wisdom then just becomes what your group has been saying to you. This is wisdom. So all the wisdom you've learned before that doesn't apply. So, for example, your predator warning bells, well, they don't apply anymore, because that's not real wisdom, is it? That's just ordinary worldly wisdom. But of course, if you are really interested in being divine, don't you have to see everyone as they are? And that does include people who aren't nice people. And the other side to learning a whole new language is you translate it through your experience of life. So if you've had an abusive life, your concept of love has been hard won. Your concept of love, it may not be, you may not have a belief in pure love, or, you may be filled with fears other people haven't got. But this is wisdom that you've learned, that you've experienced directly. And so, yeah, maybe someone who's been through abuse spends more time trying to feel safe, trying to love people, trying to receive love and feel love and trust. And they've got, like, we're all starting on different levels at different starting lines. So I just feel like if you don't start from where you're at when you arrive, and you just try to be something you're not to fit in, I'm not saying everyone would do this, but I'm backing up those people who understand this. You're not growing. You're just saying the words. And it also then becomes a block to what you believe God, Buddhas, guides, whatever, higher council, I don't know, whatever you believe. It becomes a block to them because you're not connected to it. So you're not going to be connected to them because you don't understand them. You don't get it. Like, because it's not connected to who you are through your experience. Like, there's this thing in Buddhism where we're supposed to see everybody as pure. Everybody is pure, and kind of like just ignore all the dodgy parts of somebody. But then if they are dodgy to you, you have to show them unconditional compassion. There's all these scripts, these demands made upon you. But actually, you've already lived a full life. You know when someone's being a knob. You know when someone is insincere. You know that already. And that still applies in a religious environment. So if you lose that knowing of how you filter things and how you understand things, how can you understand how the divine looks after you? Because you don't have a language for it. Because you just got rid of it all. And then you're expecting a certain sort of described experience. But the divine can only talk to you through your own mind, through your own experience. But yeah, so I think the feeling of me that you have when your sense of yourself when you first enter into a spiritual path can get sort of like shoved off or disposed of as seen as impure. But then you can't be guided if you don't have an inner language. So you can hit the ground running and lose these well-earned guides that you've already got inside you. And then you're surrounding yourself with people you either see as wiser or more learned or, more realised or have been around a long time. And then you plonk yourself in the middle of all of that. And then, of course, and you have no faith in yourself because you got rid of all of that. But who are you now? It's all just a bit sort of ungrounded. And often these learned, wise, wonderful elders of yours around you are just human beings, and they've done exactly the same thing as you're doing, and they're living a life as they think they're expected to live, rather than one that they're living through their experience. And you then end up surrounded by a lot of people who are just saying the same words as you. And I'll do another podcast on language a bit later on, because it's incredibly important to understand that your understanding of the word love can be vastly different to someone else's. And people who've been around the words of your chosen group for a long time will be very adept at using all the language. They will have already made their own choices as to which one they're going to give weight to and so forth. So in Buddhism, there's this particular teaching called emptiness, and I won't go into that now, but people use this word emptiness, and they use it in a multitude of different ways for a multitude of different excuses. So like, nothing matters because it's all empty. And then, of course, karma. People use that a lot. Well, it's your karma, so I don't have to have compassion for you. Or it's your karma, so you can't go to the teaching even though I've got loads of money. And I could help you out. People start, after a while, probably from the beginning, depending on what their makeup is like, using these teachings for their own purposes. To believe that that's not happening is not being impure or having bad faith. It's called common sense. And we don't have to get rid of our common sense when we do the spiritual path, because we learned it before the spiritual path, which was actually on the spiritual path, because the spiritual path happens from birth till death. Whether people call it the spiritual path or not, from a dictionary point of view, it's your inner world, so it's a spiritual path. There is no point going into a spiritual environment thinking, well, I've already made up my personality, I'm not going to change it. That's not what I'm implying either, because clearly we can all refine and lose some of our more weak aspects or unspiritual aspects. So I'm not saying don't be open to change or anything. What I am saying, though, is your building blocks are your treasure. They're your key to understanding the teachings and scriptures. When I first got on the spiritual path, I, looking back, was completely ridiculous. And I was very into mindfulness. and I was like, oh, I'm going to get mindful now. So I'd get all like in the moment, listening to the birds, being in my room, blah, 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 just being in the moment. And then I decided in my stupidity that if being mindful was a great thing to do and we were being encouraged to do it, maybe I'll do it all the time. So I tried to live my life in a mindful state. Now, they've made films about this, is it? Where the girl wakes up every day and lives the day again. And people with illnesses have this, where they're just in the moment and they can't remember their past or future. And I basically put myself into that situation where I forgot all of my past. I can't really describe it. I know it was because I was doing mindfulness like all the time. And actually, mindfulness teaching is not about that. That's a completely bonkers way to approach mindfulness. The truth of mindfulness is you need your past and you need the future to be in the moment. Anyway, so we can put too much emphasis on the wrong thing. So we do need to stay open to guidance from people. But I don't think we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And if you're in a group that says, oh, everything up to now is contaminated, I think that should set off alarm bells, really, because yeah, okay, nobody says the love we've been getting is divine love, but it is conventional love, and conventional love is the doorway to divine love. Same with wisdom. It's not like wisdom is just spiritual words. Wisdom is like old ladies doing crochet and chatting about life, you know, saying, oh, that boy's going to do this, or, you know, that girl should have done this. And wisdom is a multitude of things. It's not just spiritual language nonsense. Well, okay, that's not fair, because it's not always nonsense, but, you know, you can't just decide that conventional wisdom isn't wisdom. I think if you can just breathe, go into a spiritual world that you've chosen, the teachings blow your mind if it's the right place for you, but you allow those teachings to work their magic in you without losing what brought you to those teachings, I think you are safer from potential predators and making mistakes like I did, because you are using all of the wisdom you've gained in your life to approach this new experience. You wouldn't be vulnerable, and then by avoiding all that nonsense that you will have to relearn if you just ignore it, you move in an integrated way into your future self. And if you have these like divine experiences and they blow your mind and you're like, wow, that means this means, wow, everything's changing, this is divine, blah, 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 that does have ramifications through your growth, through your life, the way you look at things and stuff like that. But it doesn't in any way wipe them away or claim to make them impure, because they're the foundational steps that have brought you to that divine moment. They're precious. They're beautiful. It's completely. They need to be honoured and be a part and be a beautiful part of your growth. They're not to be thrown away or discarded as impure or not important, because they're who you are. The problem with religions and spiritual groups is they come in and they reframe key parts of our mind. They reframe love, wisdom, blah, blah, blah. They reframe it all. They say, this is how you should really frame this. And yeah, okay. So, and then because you put the weight on the people, oh, they're so holy, blah, blah, blah. You start thinking, okay, well, I need to look at this and blah, blah, blah. But you must always be sensible, have some common sense, and realize that we are all just coming from our point of view. So this person who you may see currently as knowing more than you, who you feel is wiser than you, you know, they're still just coming from their point of view, their experience, and they can't see inside of you. The only things that can see inside of you are you and your connection to the divine. And that was doing very well before you met these other wise people. So I think I've made my point. Don't lose yourself. Keep yourself all the way through. You don't need to worry that you are, you know, holding on to something that's unnecessary, because your path will teach you, like it did before the spiritual group. It will teach you when to let go of something and when to keep hold of something. So trust yourself, trust your path, trust your growth, trust the stuff you've already gained. Don't just throw it all out with the bathwater when you embrace your new group. And remember that they may have different ways of describing the things that you already know, love, wisdom, etc., etc. And that might be able to help you move on and grow by following their idea, but you don't just drop your idea of love and think, oh, well, love, for example, oh, well, that's polluted, I'll do this. Because it doesn't work like that. That's just ridiculous. If you, like I keep saying, if you just take on someone else's view, you are not going to relate to God. You're not going to relate to the Buddhas or whoever, because you won't understand how they love. You won't understand how they show you love. You won't understand how they want you to love people. So it's by honouring all of who you are already, and then being willing to embrace these new ideas, these new concepts, allowing change within you, that you grow on the spiritual path and you become closer to understanding what divine is. So that's my whole spiel for today. I hope it's useful, and I hope that it stops some other people making grandiose mistakes like I did. Thank you for listening.